Thank you, Councillor Phelps. Through you, Mayor Senzik, to the presenters and to the Executive Director, what was the state of the festival when you first took it over 5 years ago?
6 years ago, actually. It was I would say it was, I think it was in crisis maybe 2 years prior to that. And so we had to, as you remember, we had to drastically reduce the budget and bring the budget under control. So grants hadn't been applied for. It was not a great situation.
And through you, Mayor Senzik, to the Executive Director, would you say that it was nearly bankrupt, disorganized, and have just settled a lawsuit?
No, it wasn't bankrupt.
Okay. And through you, Mayor Senzik, to the Executive Director, could you tell us exactly what your duties are specifically with respect to the festival? What exactly do you do, sir?
Myself as an Executive Director?
Yes.
Well, I oversee the operations of the entire folk arts organization, so Ken would report to me, who produces the festival.
Okay. And Mayor Senzik, to the presenter, what is the priority of the Multicultural Center? Is it settlement services or is it the festival?
Well, it's clearly settlement services. It's 95% of our budget, so
okay.
And almost all of our staff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters, is the festival mentioned in your mission and vision statements?
Our mission and vision statements talk about our providing settlement services, and our festival would be an extension of our mission, which is providing settlement services to newcomers.
And as a point of clarification, through you, Mayor Senzik, to the presenter, is the word festival mentioned in your mission and vision statements?
No.
Okay, thank you. So, does the festival make money for the center?
No, not at all.
Not at all? Okay. Just got to bear with me, Mr. Mayor. I'm having a hard time focusing. I'm going to get through it, okay?
Okay, so if previous questions have been already answered, then just
very good. I'll just
try and avoid repeat questions. Cutting
move
in
me along.
some time.
Just move me along, okay? Now, getting back to the surveys, and I just want to ask as a point of clarification, were the clubs charged $200 or were they not charged $200?
They were charged a $200 deposit with the registration fee, which they got back if they completed the surveys.
Okay. Why would you charge, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters, why would you charge the club $200 if you know they don't have very much money?
Well, as an incentive to do the surveys, the clubs enjoy the benefits of grants that we apply for. And in order to get those grants, we need metrics. And in order to get those metrics, we need to survey the public.
And why would you put the burden on the clubs and not the staff to conduct the surveys and just get permission from the clubs to do the surveys?
Well, some clubs saw it as a burden, others were completely fine with it. So the opinions varied from organization to organization, but they benefit from the money that we get from the grants. So we thought it was fair that they participate with us in collecting the information for that money.
Okay, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Executive Director, how do the clubs benefit specifically by paying you that money? Through the grants?
Metrics are collected through the survey. So the survey asked questions about, well, we were able to track attendance, first of all. People who answered the surveys answered questions about income. It was a completely voluntary survey, but income, how far they traveled, that kind of thing. Those metrics allowed us to accurately apply for funding from Celebrate Ontario and other government grants. Those government grants pay for advertising and other costs for the open houses.
Okay. At the end of the day, do the metrics create a better relationship between the clubs and the Folk Arts Multicultural Center, or did it create a strained relationship between the clubs and the center?
Well, as I said, some of them were fine with it. Some of them didn't like the fact that we had a table at the entrance and were collecting information. But when you implement something for, for the first time, I would point out as well, if you read the staff report, that those numbers are actually something that the city requires for the money that we're asking for today. So it's actually you and council and staff who are asking us to provide that information. So we have to collect it somehow.
Okay, and so just as a point of clarification, and I would like to reiterate, so you're stating that the City of St. Catharines, Economic Development, whatever it was, asked you to conduct this survey on behalf of the city for funding, is that correct?
I didn't say that, although they did
Okay.
support us doing the survey and collecting the information. Yes.
Okay, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Birch, would you answer the question, please? Did this...
He did answer the question, Councillor, so move on. It was very fairly answered, so we'll move on to the next question.
Okay, thank you, thank you, Mr. Thank you. Point of privilege. Point of privilege.
No, the question was answered, so move on to your next question.
I understand, but I don't need this.
No, I don't. Just
Thank you very much. Now, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters, were the ambassadors forced or coerced to submit, hand out their surveys at the open houses? And
No, they were
Okay.
requested.
okay. And through you, Mr. Mayor, were the ambassadors told that they had to wear volunteer shirts instead of their traditional dress at the open houses while distributing surveys?
No.
Okay. All right. Brochures. Mr. Mayor, through you to the presenter, how many brochures were printed off for the 2015 festival?
Just shy of 10,000.
Shy of 10,000. Do you remember when they went to print?
Don't remember the exact date, but I do remember they were ready for the Ambassador Ball, which would have been the first Friday of
Okay.
May, so May 8th.
Now,
They were handed out at the first event, May 8th.
first event, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters, would that be the norm as to when the brochures should be handed out at the Ambassador's Ball?
Yeah, I would say so.
You would say
Yeah.
yes? You're saying yes? And 10,000. Through you, Mr. Mayor,
keep asking questions, don't
Okay.
add an opinion.
who handed out, that's 10,000 brochures for a 4-week festival. That's about 2,500 brochures a week. Who handed them out?
Brochures are distributed throughout our club members in particular,
Mhm.
our sponsors' sites that do allow us to have them, and of course our city partners' sites.
Okay. Are you flexible with your deadline regarding the open houses? So if the deadline were in, say, December, and a club member came to you in February or March, would you allow them to have an open house?
We have.
Okay. Were there any clubs last year? Was the club the Netherlands refused to have an open house when they asked around March of last year?
Yes.
Because they didn't meet the deadline?
Yeah, they were months, and they also told us they weren't having it.
Yeah, they emailed
Okay.
me and said we can't have one due to our aging.
Yeah, someone inquired that was not part of Club Netherlands, wanting to have an open house on behalf of Club Netherlands, so clearly
Okay.
the Ethnocultural Association, and they have boards of directors, and they're the ones that decide who are members of the folk arts, so.
Okay. Well, very well, I'll just ask you, did Mr. Dykstra not ask to see if he could have an open house and he was told no in March on behalf of Club Netherlands in around that time?
I'm sorry, I don't recall he asked to have one. I do remember the email coming from the Club Netherlands contact stating that we cannot have an open house this year, thank you so much, due to our aging volunteers.
Okay, all right. Now, the sale of the Ambassador's Ball tickets last year, why were they not sold at the Folk Arts Multicultural Center like they have been sold there for decades?
We did sell some, but they were sold online, so we've moved to an online system of selling tickets, which worked fairly well, and we continue with it.
And did you get any complaints from some of the club members that the tickets were not accessible to
A
many?
few of them, yeah.
Okay, and was,
Sorry, just to reply to that, I went in and personally was there to sell tickets for a copy at least 2 occasions in April. However, everything was purchased online.
Okay. Could you tell us why there was a $3.50 ticket service charge above and beyond?
Yeah, the online service that we used, which was Eventbrite, that website charges to use the site, and it's a service fee.
Okay. And do you think that this would be fair to the club members that are struggling to raise funds to charge them another $3.50 per ticket?
It was the lowest cost that we get.
Okay. And if you had just distributed the tickets at the Folk Arts Multicultural Center, would they have been charged an additional $3.50 service charge?
I have no idea.
No, so again, Councillor, that's because of technology. The answer's been the question's been answered. It's
Okay.
charged based on the technology being used. So
Okay.
keep moving.
Okay. And just a quick question, if council requested your financials through staff, you would be willing to give us your financials for the last 3 years, and you could corroborate all the light items of the budget?
We already do that.
Okay, that's great. Now, question. Do you or have you ever charged $14,000 a year in rent to the Folk Arts Festival within the last 6 years that you've been there? Have you?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
You haven't?
Nope.
You haven't charged them any rent at all?
So the
We
presenter's
have-
answered, so
Okay.
let's not go back and forth. He's answered.
I thank you, your worship, and I appreciate that.
Just to clarify, that we haven't charged $14,000 in rent. We used to, before we had in-house festival production, we hired contractors, and so we have a festival office, which is not accounted for by federal settlement revenues, so that's a hard cost to the Folk Arts. So we would charge that to the Folk Arts, or to the festival. I'm not sure we ever actually recovered it, because as I mentioned earlier, we used that those hard costs to the Folk Arts as a buffer to balance our budget. So often, if we ran, for example, a $8,000 deficit, we could only cover $6,000 of our costs.
Okay. You mentioned in your report that you want to operate the festival in a timely and professional fashion. How long would it take to organize, execute, and plan the festival? How many months?
Well, to do it properly,
I work 12 months a year.
12 months a year?
Yes.
For-
There are more intense times throughout the year as we get closer. Of course, I'm going to work more hours on that. During the month of May, I'm very busy. Not so busy in the month of August, but 12 months of the year is my focus of the festival. And now I also have revenue events throughout the year.
Okay. So last year, when did you start to plan and execute the festival? Was it in March or April of last year?
For the 2015 festival, I started planning that the day after the 2014 festival ended.
Okay, then forgive me, I'm getting my years mixed up. What about, was it then the 2014 festival? Was it March of 2014 that you were hired to execute? So it was March, and forgive me, I apologize. So that would be 2 months, 3 months to execute the festival in May, is that correct?
There were already items completed by the time I arrived by the previous person.
And how long was the previous person there, the executive director, prior to hiring Ms. Seabrook in 2014? Was it as of February of that year?
I can't remember, several months at least.
Several months?
Sure. As you may recall, we've been working with city staff. One of the requests of the city is that we have year-round festival production. So the festival production we have now, which is in-house and year-round, is something that is in our strategic plan, and something we've worked with the city of St. Catharines to have over the last 3 or 4 years.
Very good. I just have a couple more questions and I'll wrap it up. Have you changed your bylaws in the last 5 years?
No.
Okay. Do your bylaws provide 2 ex officio positions for city councilors to sit on your board?
No.
Okay. Did you ever send the city council an email stating that there are 2 ex officio positions on your board in your bylaws?
there were two ex officio positions. There are two ex officio positions on the board. They are we choose to designate one or both of them to city councilors because of our partnership with the city. But it's up to the board of directors how many city councilors they designate into those ex officio positions.
And I'm sorry, and would you be willing to
Through
give,
me.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor, I apologize, through you to the presenter. And would you be willing to show us, send city staff a copy of those bylaws showing?
City staff have all of our bylaws, they have
Okay.
our strat plan, they have every documentation that we use.
All right. If you had to remove a member or director, would you have to call a special meeting?
No.
No? Did you, through Mayor Senzik, did you or your staff or your chair ask Councillor Harris to resign from the board?
We informed him at the end of the year that we would not be having two city councilors on our board, and as he had only attended one meeting in a year, we asked Councillor Stevens to remain, and we went down to one city councilor.
And through you, Mayor Senzik, you said we asked him to leave the board. Could you tell this council who we was, please?
Just the board.
Was the board of directors. Have there been any other members in the last 6 years that have missed more than 2 meetings that have been asked to leave the board? Or more than 3 meetings, whatever your bylaws stipulate?
I don't know, probably not.
And do you think that that would be fair to Councillor Harris?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
That's fair.
And I have one more question, and final question. What is the longest term that any director can serve on your board? Any director?
In our bylaws, a director can serve 3 consecutive 2-year terms.
Okay. And do you have anybody on that board right now who is serving more than 3 2-year consecutive terms?
No.
I thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Sorrento.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the presenter? Councillor Bellows?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters, thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question. You mentioned seniors programs because St. Catharines has so many seniors, and I'm hoping that people that are watching, if you could just give a few of the programs so that we can educate the public and perhaps more people join in.
Do you mean our clubs or the ones we run at the folk arts?
I'm sorry, I should clarify. The ones you run at the folk arts.
So the folk arts, it depends on the funding that we receive. So our Community Connections program has a really popular program called Chop Chop, and it's actually a seniors program where Wright's Vegetables on Ontario Street donates produce, and our senior clients get together and chop it for soup kitchens in the city, and they have time to practice their English and make friends.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Question, all right? Okay, Councillor Stevens, question?
I just want to bring it up to pace through you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenters. When does this festival start this year? How much is the money needed from the city of St. Catharines? That's 2 questions. And what will it do to make this festival, the 48th Festival of Folk Arts, not multicultural, do for us?
That's one question, I'll give you one question.
I'll try and answer that. The money that we get from the city is very important, and any festival will tell you that, especially these days, they depend on the municipal funding because other levels of government and other grants, such as Celebrate or Trillium even, you can often get notified of that you're successful or not almost at the time the festival begins. So what festivals really struggle with, and I'm sure you see this when groups come to council, is cash flow. So what a 3-year commitment from the city does is it allows us to have cash flow in as early as January every year, which allows us to plan the festival as we wait for notification from other funders. So it really, without the city funding, it would be really difficult to run a festival and to have any kind of stability.
Great. I'm looking forward to the 48th Festival, and I hope council supports the funding as they did great in one last week. Thank you.
Okay, so can I thank you very much for your presentation, and apologize for the length of time it took to have you up here, and it's a long night, and thank you for your patience, Mr. Birch and Ms. Seabrook, thank you for everything you're doing at the Multicultural Festival, especially with the Syrian refugee. You've taken a very strong leadership role in that, and we greatly appreciate that on behalf of the community. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Phillips, to 3.2. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. 3.7.3, we have